Hey students, this lesson is going to be about finding a percent of a number. There are three strategies you can use when finding a percent of a number. I will be going through all three strategies during this video. The first one will be how to use mental math. The second will be instead of using a percent, you use a fraction. And the third will be making your percentage into a decimal. To find a percent of a number using mental math, we rely on one specific math fact. And what this is how to find 10% of a number. Whenever you find 10% of a number, you are simply moving the decimal point one spot to the left. So I'm going to start with finding 10% of 50. So if I look at 50 and I move that decimal point one spot to the left, that means 10% is 5. And then you have to think, how can I go from 10% to 30%? Did you say times 3? Because you're right. 10% times 3 would be 30%. And what we do to one side of our equation, we need to do to the other. So we're going to do 5 times 3, which is 15. That means that 30% of 50 is 15. For our next problem, we are going to be finding 15% of 60. We are still using our mental math strategy, so the first thing I want to do is find 10% of 60. I know with the 10% that I can just move my decimal one spot, so that means 10% of 60 is 6. Now we need to figure out, okay, how can I go from 10% to 15%? And what we can do is if we did 10% plus 5%, that would give us 15%. But now we need to find what 5% is. Well, if 10% is 6 and 5% is half of 10%, so to go from 10% to 5%, I need to divide by 2. What you do to one side, we're going to do to the other. So half of 6 is actually 3. And then since I added 10% and 5%, I'm going to add 6 and 3, and that equals 9. So 15% of 60 is 9. For this example, we are going to try finding 30% of 50, but instead of using mental math, we are going to use a fraction. This is the same problem from earlier in this video, so I'm just going to show you how to find the answer a different way. What we need to rely on here is knowing how to write a percent as a fraction. So what we can do, instead of 30%, we can think of that as 30 over 100. Remembering that percent literally means per 100, so 30 per 100 or 30%. The word of means multiplication, so I know I'm going to do 30 100ths times 50, and when we're multiplying a whole number, we put that over 1. Now we want to try to cross simplify, and can I simplify 30 and 1? Is there anything I could divide both those by to make them smaller? Hopefully you said no. 1 is the smallest number, so we cannot, or the smallest whole number, so we cannot simplify that anymore. But when I look at 50 and 100, hopefully you notice that we could divide each of those by 50. 50 divided by 50 is 1, and 100 divided by 50 is 2. So now when I go to multiply, 30 times 1 is 30 over 2 times 1 is 2. Now we need to simplify. 2 goes into 30 15 whole times. So 30% of 50 is 15. Okay, here's another look at 30% of 50. This time we are going to use our percentage as a decimal instead of a fraction. So one way to remember how to find a decimal from your fraction is that when we say 30% or 30 per 100, we're doing 30 divided by 100. So you can either remember the trick that when you divide by 100, you're going to move that decimal point 2 spots, or you could actually divide that out. So just a short little recap, 30%, that means 30 over 100. And if we divided that out, 30 divided by 100, as that line right here means, that's division, 30 divided by 100, you would find that it's 30 hundredths. Well, kind of ironic about that is we say the two of these, we say 30 100ths here as a decimal, and we also say 30 100ths as a fraction. So they sound the same, just want to make sure you write it into that decimal form. So instead of 30% of 50, we are going to do 30 hundredths, and of means multiplication, 50. So all I need to do is multiply these out. Okay. I know multiplying by zeros gives me all zeros, and then I move over a number, so I put a 0. 3 times 0 is 0. 3 times 5 is 15. So now I'm going to add these up. 0, 0, 5, 1. And if there's 2 decimals here, 0 in this number, that means we're going to have 2 decimals in our answer. We move it over. Final answer is 15. Okay, now we're going to work on finding 45% of 40. What we'll want to remember for this one is that 45% is 45 over 100, which we say is 45 hundredths. So if we put that into a decimal, we get 45 hundredths. Of means multiply 40. So 45 hundredths times 40, which I like to put these vertically to help me multiply. So 5 times 0 is 0. 5 times 4 is 20. Scoot over a number, so I put a 0. 4 times 0 is 0. 4 times 4 is 16. Now I add them together. 0 plus 0, 0 plus 0. 2 plus 6 is 8, and then a 1. There are no decimals in my top number, 2 decimals in my bottom number, which means I will have 2 decimals in my answer. Since the zeros are on the end, I don't need those. That means that 45% of 40 is, ignore that 4 I wrote, 18. Just like that.